It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice right now. My name is Michael Evans. I'm going to be your host this morning. You're joining us halfway through our program. And I'm glad to be here with you, and I'm glad that you've decided to join us. We try to cover unique and different stories and offer you a different take or a different viewpoint on that which we see that is provided to us as indoctrination by the mainstream Ministry of Propaganda on a day in and day out basis. There are plenty of alternative media out there, and oftentimes really what it requires is that you do a little bit of due diligence and find it. There's one group out there I happen to very much like. I don't agree with everything they say, and of course I shouldn't. But there's an organization out there called Reason.com. It's Reason Magazine, Reason, great website. I'm not suggesting that we should never temper our reason and our logic with compassion or with our conscience. But I can tell you this, the lack of reason, the lack of logic, the lack of common sense in our current situation, in our currently politically correct little, dysfunctional dystopian utopia that they think they're creating. Hello. So the question really is, why and how should we view that information that is around us? Well, for starters, you got to be able to, from time to time, look outside of what you perceive to be the media. I visit Reason.com and I read their articles on a routine basis. By the way, stop watching television, okay? Including news media television. I got to tell you, watching TV is programming. They call it daily programming for a reason. Just like Obama said, under my plan, your electric prices will necessarily skyrocket, and I intend to, fundamentally transform America. Programming means what it says. There's an article I posted up there this morning about the ethanol disaster of America. And one of the reasons that I like Reason.com is because, they use clear, concise, thoughtful, articulate, and they use common sense. And each and every one of those descriptors is diametrically opposed to what we currently have in our government today. I mean, you got to ask yourself this question. Is government clear with you? Hardly. They're very unclear. In fact, it's obtuse. It's opaque. Why? It's done on purpose. Because you're the only one not in the know. Anyone who needs to be in the know, or who is in the know, is on the inside. You're on the outside. And the glass is frosted over so that you can't see the party going on inside. You're just told that you have to pay for it all and live under whatever they decide in there. It's never concise. I mean, ask yourself, is law concise? No. Yeah, we've got the Federal Register that has, 75,000 pages. It's not concise. You need an accountant to figure out the tax laws. Why? Because it keeps accountants in business? You need lawyers to help you get to a court. Why? That's not what the intent of courts were. You shouldn't be dismissed just because you didn't follow some stupid archaic procedure that nobody knows about because it's written in legalese, except the lawyers who are intent to keep you on the outside. It's ridiculous, folks. It's not concise. They cloud all these issues, and they do so for a reason. They put these loopholes in, and everything else is vague. Well, it's open to interpretation. Interpretation by whom? Well, the people who are making the rules, of course. And by the way, you're not part of it. Have a nice day. Get lost. Go on. Move. We'll call you when we've rendered a decision. Now get out of here. I mean, you can get that kind of dialogue by going to prison. It's never thoughtful. Remember, clear, concise, thoughtful, articulate, and insightful. Is it ever thoughtful? That's a joke. It's not thoughtful because if it was thoughtful, they would close these loopholes that they leave. They wouldn't have the capability for end runs around everything. But they can't do that because that would end and eliminate a completely a political class caste system. An insider caste system. The oligarchy of government and corporatocracy. The fusion of which is called fascism. Stop throwing your hands up when you hear the word fascism. It's not only Hitler, you idiot. I hear that argument from people all the time. I get emails about it. If you understand what fascism is, look, fascism is a merger of corporations and government. Government becomes the enforcer for corporate mandates that benefit their bottom line and profitability. They, meanwhile, keep everybody in government plied with resources and money and bennies. You pay the price. You're manipulated to benefit the corporate's bottom line. They use the law enforcement and the government as their mercenary arm, and that's the end of it. That's what fascism is. The end result of fascism can be a Holocaust, but it doesn't have to be. You've got fascism going on all over the world. Most of South America is fascist. They're not socialist and communist. You've been trained to abhor the word fascism and immediately attribute it to Nazi Germany. I mean, that's one example. If I said car, it wouldn't automatically force you to think Ford. Maybe you like Chevy. Maybe you think Dodge. Maybe you think GMC. You see, it's a word association game that you've been taught can only mean one thing. I'm never saying fascism is good. It's never good. But you shouldn't look at it and immediately run from the conversation because of the word. It's not thoughtful because if it was thoughtful, fascism wouldn't be the end goal. Government is never articulate, ever. Remember, the goal here was clear, concise, thoughtful, articulate, and insightful. Is government ever articulate? Have you ever listened to these dolts who call themselves the best and the brightest that the nation has to offer on television when they're being interviewed? Articulate would hardly be the word I would use to describe these people. I mean, half of them can't string 10 words together in a clear sentence. Really. Look at the way they speak. They have no vocabulary. They have no clear presence in the ability to begin to take a topic and run it to the end. Now, many of you will say, well, that's on purpose. They're trying to be obfuscatory. Well, I get it. But then again, my point exactly. You can't be articulate when you're constantly trying to obfuscate. It doesn't work that way. Hello? It's never insightful. If it was insightful, you wouldn't be forced to apply trillions of dollars, literally trillions. I mean, our budget is $4 trillion a year. We're $17.5 trillion in debt. We've got nothing to show for it. And you wouldn't be forced to ply your masters with trillions of dollars for which you receive no benefit. And they would see the obvious error of those ways if they were insightful. But no, they look at that 17 trillion and say, good job, we did something good there. Really? Look back at the havoc that you have wreaked. You know, government reminds me of trying to take a battleship up a narrow boating canal. You know, the wake that's caused is so massive, it busts all the docks and it smashes everything in its wake. And it never looks back. Does government ever use common sense? Never, ever, 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 never, ever. Any 10-year-old can tell you that. Any first-year economics student could say, we don't follow a model here of capitalism. In fact, I can tell you this. There's not a single American alive right now who's ever seen true capitalism. Because what we have is a mixed version of capitalism. It's a mixed marketplace. It's capitalism peppered about by government who creates monopolies for the benefit of their cronies and supporters. That's it. They've been bribed to accomplish a task, and they complete that task. Not for your benefit, but for the benefit of completing the task which they've been paid to do. And it's never paid by you. You pay for all of it, but the bribe is paid by somebody to accomplish something for them. Special interest. That's not common sense. Any 10-year-old can look at it and say, well, he's got 10 apples, and he's got 2 apples. I'm going to go buy over there because he's got a better choice. And by the way, he wants a penny less per apple. If I buy all 10, I just saved a dime. What exactly do we get from government? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Nothing that's beneficial, nothing that's got any value, nothing that has any virtue. It produces nothing, it makes nothing, it generates nothing. Government's not a production center. It doesn't have a product. It's not a profit center. What they do is they take. They take from you, and then they redistribute amongst their pals and their friends and their cronies. Or they buy votes with it. And they fool people into dependency and enslavement. They breed corruption like horny rabbits because they can't exist with 1 or 2 honest brokers in the room. So they have to corrupt those honest brokers as soon as they get in. That's why all those people who got in the Tea Party in 2010 and 2012, they're worthless to you now. They're worthless to you now. Our founders warned us about this, and we didn't listen. Instead, we took the small prize. We took the small prize. Do you want what's behind door number 1, door number 2, or door number 3? Or I'll tell you what, if you will just forego all 3 of those prizes, here's what we're going to do. Instead of that, I'm going to give you this $5 bill. And you look at those 3 doors and you say, well, let's see, that could be a dozen eggs. I don't know, $5 is more than a dozen eggs. And that door over there, you know, I don't know, that could just be a sheet of paper. And, you know, well, Jiminy Crickets, I could buy an entire ream of 500 sheets of paper and still have $3 left over if I just take the $5 bill. And that door over there, well, you know, that door over there, I don't know, it just may have air behind it. And of course, I lost the $5. I'll take the $5 bill. I'm safe. Then they roll back the door, and behind that door is a brand new Cadillac, and behind that door is a brand new job worth $250,000 a year to you. And behind this door is the ultimate prize: your liberty and your freedom, and the keys to door number 2 and door number 3. But you took the $5. You took the handout. Took the easy route. And I got to tell you, America, what this is going to do is lead us to a second Revolutionary War. I'm not calling for it. I'm just pointing out the obvious. I had somebody send me an email the other day or post up, you know, people who incite violence like you should be drawn and quartered and, you know, whatever. I'm not citing violence. I'm just stating the obvious. I'm looking down the road, and I'm seeing the car wreck right there. And I'm saying if we don't hit the brakes, we're going to add to the 105-car pileup. And we're going to be car number 106. What we will see in this country is another revolution. And depending upon how it goes and how it starts and what's involved and what plans, nebulous, nefarious plans government has for us, I don't know. I do know this. At some point in time, they're going to have to close the steely fist of tyranny upon us. They have to. Do you know why? Because $17.5 trillion is not payable, not to mention the other $120 trillion that nobody wants to talk about. Not to mention the other $200 trillion, by the way, that we have backed. What? All the derivatives from all the people who bought them on Wall Street. $200 trillion. Government guaranteed. If it all goes busts, what? We can't pay the $17.5 trillion we have now. How are we ever going to pay $200 trillion? Look, what you have to recognize is that the total asset value of the United States itself think about it. Who are we going to have a fire sale to? Who's got $17.5 trillion to bail us out, assuming we wanted to sell the entire country? Everything's for sale. Every piece of land we own as a nation, which is pretty considerable west of the Mississippi, right? So the federal government, Washington, D.C., we're going to physically sell that 10 square miles, and we're going to sell every fort, every gun, every bazooka, every airplane, every warship. We're going to sell it all to somebody as a fire sale so we can pay off the debt. Nobody's got $17.5 trillion. It's like you going out to your neighbors and saying, look, I know I've got a $5 million mansion here, and I know you guys are all living in tar paper shacks. Anybody willing to buy that house and give me the $4 million I need to pay off the mortgage? And everybody looks at you and says, well, that'd be wonderful, but I don't got $4 million. They know that the debt is unsustainable and that our economy is being kept alive by false props. So this has to end fiscally. They also realize that there's a growing movement in the United States of people who have just had enough, and they don't like that. Not only is it a growing movement in the United States, but it's a growing movement around the globe, ladies and gentlemen. And everywhere you look, the peasantry are beginning to rise up. And they're only going to let that go so far until they say, we better cut this in the bud now and nip this in the bud before it gets out of hand. And they get real traction. So what will happen in this country is we're going to see some sort of a fiscal economic slide that will inevitably lead to some sort of a collapse. I don't know how it'll come about. I don't even care. It doesn't matter. What I am telling you is that those of you who are unprepared will pay dearly. And at some point in time, because of the nature of government's need to gain control, they will assert authority People will fight back, and a new civil war will be on in this country, a new revolutionary war against the foreign government of Washington, D.C. And it's likely that millions will die. That's a hard reality to swallow. But I got to tell you, it doesn't make it implausible. It's not a science fiction book, folks. It's not a TV show where at the end of the day, the magical's going to happen and the whole thing's going to end up and everybody walks away happy with a smile. This is reality. And it ain't going to end the way that you've been trained to believe things will always end. The truth is that we've been given all the truth we need to know. The guy named George Washington one time, you know what he said? Government is not reason. It is not eloquence. It is force. Like fire, it is a dangerous servant and a fearful master. And I'm here to tell you that we have not been good watchguards of the fire. That we've allowed it to get out of control, and that there's no way for us to now put it out. And it's not just threatening our home and our community. It's threatening our families, our very lives. You've been listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I say these things not to alarm you, but to awaken you and jolt you into the reality that you need to see. You need to come out of your stupor. You need to come out of your cocoon. You need to realize that it's time to straighten up and fly right. You've been laboring under this inebriational delusion for long enough. You can communicate with me directly at mike@americasvoicenow.org. That's mike@americasvoicenow.org. We're going to come back in just a moment. When we do, I never even really got to the ethanol story. I guess I got tangled up in this whole nonsense about, well, you can find it on reason.com. Go read it. When we come back, we're going to talk about the VA whistleblowers who are exposing what you will come to know as murder. Right now, it's malfeasance. It will shortly become murder. Because I'm telling you right now, just because a bank robber walks into the bank and a lady dies of a heart attack doesn't absolve him of murder. We need more whistleblowers in this country, folks. Communicate with me, Mike@americasvoicenow.org. Make sure that you visit our sponsor, batterystation.com. It's batterystation.com. You can call them at 417-257-7799. 257-7799. Find them on the web at batterystation.com. We'll be right back.